Imagine this, an honor student with a perfect GPA, a full scholarship, and a bright future, suddenly accused of assassinating Charlie Kirk. At just 22, Tyler Robinson now sits in a Utah jail cell, refusing to speak, yet what he doesn't know is the FBI already has him on tape, confessing to the act. Even more shocking? His own family turned him in after a chilling dinner table confession. And the strangest evidence of all, bullet casings etched with bizarre, mocking messages that could seal his fate. This isn't just a crime story, it's a descent into arrogance, radicalization, and the death penalty trial of the decade. Tyler Robinson has just set off a firestorm in the Charlie Kirk assassination case, one that could flip everything we thought we knew on its head. At only 22, Robinson now sits in a Utah jail cell, stonewalling federal investigators and refusing to explain why he targeted one of America's most recognizable conservative figures. But here's the twist that could completely dismantle his defense. The FBI already caught him on tape admitting to the act, something he doesn't even realize. Stick with me, because once you hear about his contradictions and the growing mountain of evidence, you'll see why this case is spiraling out of his control. When I first dug into this story, I was floored by Robinson's sheer arrogance. Official reports show him putting on a tough guy act with the FBI, staying tight-lipped through questioning. Yet, leaked family testimony tells a different story. He openly bragged to his own relatives about killing Charlie Kirk. That's what has law enforcement stunned. And believe me, the most jaw-dropping details come at the end of this breakdown. First, I'll walk you through how Robinson's own family ended up turning him over after his reckless confession. Second, I'll reveal the FBI's damning evidence, including the bizarre messages he etched onto bullet casings. Third, we'll unpack how a so-called golden boy with a spotless 4.0 GPA threw his entire future away in the name of political violence. And don't go anywhere, because when you hear about the death penalty charges he's facing, and how his inflated ego fueled this whole mess, you'll walk away with a very different perspective on how political radicalization destroys lives. But before diving into Robinson's shocking confession, you need to understand who Charlie Kirk really was, and why his assassination didn't just rattle America, but sparked ripples that are already stirring unrest across the globe. Charlie Kirk wasn't just another commentator, he was a powerhouse in conservative politics. At only 31, he had already built Turning Point USA into the largest conservative youth network in America, with chapters stretching across hundreds of campuses. His influence even reached the White House, Vice President J.D. Vance once admitted. So much of our administration's success traces directly to Charlie's ability to organize and rally people. Kirk gained national attention through his Prove Me Wrong debates, where he sparred with college students in raw, unfiltered discussions on controversial topics. And in a tragic twist of fate, he was doing exactly that when his life was cut short, standing on stage at Utah Valley University, taking hostile questions with his usual boldness. The last question he ever answered was about transgender mass shooters. Kirk's blunt reply? Too many. Moments later, a single bullet from 200 yards away pierced his neck, killing him instantly. What makes this case even more chilling is the background of the accused shooter, Tyler Robinson. This wasn't a troubled youth from hardship, he was the textbook example of success gone off the rails. With an ACT score of 34, Robinson ranked among the top 1% of students nationwide. His perfect 4.0 GPA earned him a prestigious presidential scholarship to Utah State University. His proud mother even captured the moment on video, the scholarship committee congratulating him, her voice trembling with excitement. On paper, he had it all. He grew up in a $600,000 home decorated with hunting trophies, surrounded by comfort and opportunity. Neighbors and teachers remembered him as quiet, respectful, and brilliant, the kind of student every educator loved. Yet despite that seemingly flawless foundation, Robinson's story took a devastating turn. After just one semester, he abruptly dropped out of college, leaving everyone who knew him shocked at how quickly his promise unraveled. The descent of Tyler Robinson, from celebrated honor student to political assassin, is what makes this case so chilling. A criminologist studying the tragedy explained that Robinson fits the textbook profile of someone who drifts into isolation, becomes disillusioned, and eventually spirals down a dangerous rabbit hole. But the most damning piece of evidence didn't come from investigators. It came straight from Robinson's own lips at a family dinner. According to Utah Governor Spencer Cox, who shared details from the FBI's probe, Robinson openly mentioned Charlie Kirk at the dinner table in early September. Witnesses told federal agents he not only brought up Kirk's scheduled appearance at Utah Valley University but also ranted about his disdain for him. One family member recalled Robinson describing Kirk as full of hate and spreading hate. That single conversation may prove to be the prosecution's smoking gun. It paints a clear picture of intent, showing Robinson was laying out his anger weeks before the attack. Prosecutors are expected to seize on this moment as evidence of premeditation. And yet, what makes this story even more extraordinary is how Robinson's own family became both the source of crucial testimony and the key to his downfall. After the assassination, the FBI unleashed one of the most aggressive manhunts in recent history. They even offered a staggering $100,000 reward, a some experts say is unusually high given how quickly it was announced. Within just 33 hours, over 11,000 tips flooded in. The breakthrough came from a place no one expected: Robinson's own father. When the FBI released surveillance images of the suspect, he recognized his son's face staring back at him. Imagine the horror of that moment, realizing your child may be at the center of a political killing. According to law enforcement insiders, the father confronted Tyler directly, and in that confrontation, Robinson admitted the unthinkable. He had killed Charlie Kirk. Listen closely, because this part reveals just how disturbed Robinson's mindset had become. When his father begged him to surrender to authorities, Robinson refused at first, saying he'd rather die in a shootout than face arrest. Desperate, the family called in their local youth pastor, who ultimately reached out to the U.S. Marshals to arrange a safe surrender. Robinson was eventually taken into custody at his parents' home, still dressed in clothes nearly identical to those seen in FBI surveillance footage. But that's only the beginning of what investigators uncovered. Inside the house, agents discovered the murder weapon, a rifle wrapped in a towel, alongside bullet casings scrawled with bizarre political and mocking messages. Some read chilling slogans like "Hey Fascists," "Catch and Bella Ciao," a song-turned anti-fascist anthem through video game culture. Others revealed an immature, mocking streak, with phrases like "If you read this, you're gay LMAO." Criminal justice expert Gillian Snyder pointed out that this lack of consistency in his messaging speaks volumes. When we talk about a true criminal mastermind, there's usually coherence in their intent. What we see here instead is immaturity layered over violent extremism. The trail of evidence only got darker. Robinson's transgender roommate, now cooperating fully with investigators, turned over text messages and Discord chats that tied him directly to the crime. According to Fox News sources, these digital communications gave the FBI confirmation beyond doubt. Robinson had openly discussed the rifle and ammunition used in the attack. What's truly chilling is how precise those details were. Robinson allegedly sent Discord messages about stashing the rifle somewhere and wrapping it in a towel, exactly how agents found it when they searched the scene. The digital footprint left behind didn't just implicate him, it mirrored the crime step for step. Here's the mind-blowing part. For all of Robinson's careful plotting, his mistakes were staggering. Criminal justice expert Gillian Snyder put it best: there was a huge degree of planning, but also shocking sloppiness. In surveillance footage, you can literally see him climbing the university stairs with his bare hand on the railing, leaving behind obvious DNA. The irony is almost unbelievable. Robinson was smart enough to scope out a new perfect sniper position 200 yards away, yet careless enough to scatter his DNA across the crime scene and talk openly about his plans on platforms the FBI constantly monitors. That blend of intelligence and arrogance is what ultimately betrayed him. What's even more fascinating and disturbing is his behavior after capture. Despite admitting everything to his family, Robinson has completely clammed up with federal investigators. Reports confirm he is flat out refusing to answer questions about motive or anything else. Snyder explains why this silence may actually backfire. In this case, the parent brought him in. I suspect he was advised not to cooperate and to request legal counsel. But given the mountain of evidence, investigators don't even need his voice. They'll lean entirely on the forensic and digital footprint he's already left behind. Robinson seems to believe that stonewalling makes him look strong, but the truth is very different. The FBI doesn't need his cooperation. They already have his family's testimony about his confession, his roommate's cooperation, physical DNA evidence, hours of surveillance footage, and damning Discord messages that match the crime step for step. And now, the consequences are catching up fast. Robinson is scheduled to face formal charges on Tuesday, and the penalties on the table could be life-ending. Robinson now faces the gravest of consequences, the death penalty. Former President Trump has already gone on record demanding the ultimate punishment for him. Law enforcement sources confirm prosecutors will push for pretrial detention, and Attorney General Pam Bondi, along with the DOJ, are actively considering federal charges in addition to the states. That means Robinson could be staring down multiple death penalty cases at the same time. But beyond the legal fallout, his actions have ignited something far bigger. Charlie Kirk's widow, Erica, broke her silence in a fiery public statement. Her words carried raw anger and unwavering resolve. "If you thought my husband's mission was powerful before, you have no idea. The movement he built will not end. It won't." And she wasn't exaggerating. Far from silencing Kirk's voice, this assassination has only amplified it. Conservative leaders like Ben Shapiro have promised to carry the torch, saying they will lift the blood-stained microphone Charlie Kirk left behind. On campuses across the nation, students are mourning his loss, sharing heartfelt tributes that show just how deeply his work shaped a generation of young conservatives. The ripple effects have spread beyond U.S. borders. Turning Point USA's influence appears to be fueling demonstrations overseas, with anti-immigration protests erupting in the UK in direct response to Kirk's killing. Even Utah's governor, Spencer Cox, voiced how deeply shaken he was, admitting, "I prayed that if this had to happen here, it wouldn't be one of us." The public's emotions have swung sharply. While some mocked Kirk's death with cruel signs declaring Charlie deserved it, outraged onlookers physically threw the hecklers into the water. The backlash underscored one truth: this assassination didn't just claim a life, it became a political flashpoint that may define the next chapter of America's cultural battles. This case has revealed just how deeply Americans feel about the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Tyler Robinson believed he was clever enough to pull off the perfect political hit, but in the end, it was his own arrogance and contradictions that destroyed him. Yes, he had the brains to win a full-ride scholarship and the foresight to plan out a calculated attack, but he was too immature to avoid leaving DNA everywhere and careless enough to broadcast his plans online. He had the nerve to brag to his family about killing Charlie Kirk, but no courage to face federal investigators. That contradiction alone shows the warped psychology behind political violence, the way ego, anger, and disillusionment can twist potential into destruction. The evidence against Robinson is crushing. His family's testimony, his roommate's cooperation, hard DNA evidence, surveillance video, incriminating Discord chats, and even the bizarre slogans etched onto his bullet casings. His silence isn't saving him, it's just giving prosecutors more time to stitch together an airtight death penalty case. So here's the question I want to leave you with, and it's not an easy one. How does someone with every advantage in life, intelligence, opportunity, a bright future mapped out before them, end up throwing it all away in an act of political violence? It's a question that has haunted criminologists, journalists, educators, and families alike, because Tyler Robinson's story doesn't fit the neat little box we want it to. He wasn't a kid from a broken home. He wasn't struggling to get by. He wasn't the stereotype of someone who lashes out at the world because he had no other choice. Robinson was, by all accounts, the perfect success story in the making. A 4.0 GPA, a 34 on the ACT, a full presidential scholarship to a respected university, and a supportive family cheering him on every step of the way. He lived in comfort, in stability, and in privilege. And yet, in just a matter of months, that same young man morphed into something unrecognizable. A political assassin with blood on his hands and a future erased by his own decisions. That transformation is what makes this case so terrifying and so important to talk about. Because if someone like Robinson, who had it all, can fall into the trap of radicalization and violent extremism, it raises unsettling questions about just how fragile the line is between promise and ruin. It shows us that brilliance and potential don't make someone immune to toxic ideologies. In fact, in some cases, intelligence can actually accelerate the descent. The smarter the person, the deeper the rabbit hole they can dig themselves into when anger, resentment, or disillusionment take root. And Robinson's arrogance, his contradictions, are a big part of that story. Think about it. He was bold enough to brag to his family about what he had done, but too cowardly to explain himself to federal investigators. He had the tactical skill to find a new perfect sniper position but was reckless enough to leave his DNA smeared across the scene. He etched slogans onto his bullet casings to make some kind of statement, yet those very casings are now one of the strongest pieces of evidence sealing his fate. His pride, his immaturity, and his refusal to admit fault didn't protect him. They betrayed him. The bigger question is, what can we learn from this? Robinson's downfall is more than just a crime story. It's a cautionary tale about the dangers of radicalization in an age where anger spreads faster than truth. We live in a time where digital platforms give people endless communities to validate their darkest thoughts. Discord chats, fringe forums, anonymous spaces, these aren't just harmless online hangouts. For someone like Robinson, they became echo chambers where paranoia was fed, where hatred was normalized, and where planning something unthinkable felt like taking control. But here's the thing, Robinson's story isn't just about him. It's also about us. It's about a society struggling to figure out how to identify the warning signs before it's too late. It's about families caught between love for their child and horror at what that child has done. Imagine being Robinson's father, seeing your own son's face on an FBI wanted poster, realizing you are holding the answer that could solve a national manhunt. Imagine the weight of making that phone call, the decision to turn your child in, knowing it would shatter your family forever but potentially save countless other lives. It's also about the victims, not just Charlie Kirk, whose death sent shockwaves across the political landscape, but the students who witnessed it, the community scarred by it, and the global ripple effects that are still unfolding. Kirk's assassination has already sparked movements abroad, fueling protests and political energy that may reshape debates far beyond the United States. And whether you admired Kirk or opposed him, the reality is undeniable. One man's violent act didn't silence a voice, it amplified it. Robinson didn't end a movement, he gave it a martyr. So where does this leave us? It leaves us facing some uncomfortable truths. That education, wealth, and opportunity aren't enough to shield someone from extremism. That intelligence without humility can become dangerous. That silence, like Robinson's in front of investigators, isn't strength, it's weakness disguised as pride. And most importantly, it leaves us grappling with the idea that political violence doesn't just destroy the intended target, it destroys families, communities, and futures on both sides. Tyler Robinson is a chilling reminder of how quickly brilliance can curdle into extremism. His story forces us to look closer at how isolation, ideology, and arrogance can transform potential into tragedy. And while his trial will likely drag on, with prosecutors building what looks to be an airtight death penalty case, the real trial is happening outside the courtroom. In the court of public opinion, where we have to ask ourselves hard questions about how a nation deals with division, radicalization, and rage. So I'll ask you again. How does someone with so much potential end up here? And what does that mean for the rest of us, as we try to navigate a world where political anger too often turns deadly? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because this conversation is far from over, and honestly, it's one we can't afford to stop having.